Tell you something, being a man ain't no joke.
Toxic masculinity.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sex.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is Andre again from a Christian male perspective, joined by my boy Drew here. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. How about yourself?
Man, better not deserve. JT got a little issue. He may not be able to join us today, but we're going to keep it rolling. That's the way life goes, man.
Right.
All right. One of the things we talked about, we talked offline, was how do we help each other as men who are trying to follow this Christian male perspective, this Christian lifestyle? What are some areas that we really can help each other out at, and maybe give some good practical advice to other men who are trying to follow this way as well? And one of the things we talked about was this idea of confidence. And I'll start by, because sometimes definitions matter to me. Definitions do matter.
Yeah.
Merriam-Webster, they define confidence as this. Let me look it up again, make sure I got it right. So I want to make sure I'm quoting them correctly. So confidence is a faith or belief that one will act in a right or effective or proper way. Another way of putting it is, what's another way? Another definition. A relationship of trust or intimacy. I think the first definition is probably the more one that we think about, is faith or belief that one will act right, or that they will give you a particular outcome that you agree on. And for me, I think that's important because that focuses on two things. One, in order to have confidence in yourself or something or anyone else, you got to have a faith or belief in that person or that thing.
Right.
And secondly, that faith or belief you have to believe there's a certain outcome that's going to happen with that.
Yeah.
The kind of classic example I give is I like basketball. I like basketball. I like following basketball, and I'm a big Shaquille O'Neal fan. Love Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal has great confidence that if he's within 1 feet of the basketball goal, he can score. Great confidence.
Yeah.
However, when you give him over to the free throw line, he's a 52% lifetime free throw shooter, around 52%. Not a lot of confidence. He doesn't have a lot of confidence in himself. And so I think that shows that there's two aspects when you talk about confidence. There's the faith and belief and trust is another way of they putting in the definition. And that's in someone or something. And then you got to believe in the outcome that's going to happen with it. So with that said, do you think that today that we have a crisis of confidence within men and just people in general? Do you think there's a lack of confidence in being able to accomplish things today?
Yeah, I feel like it's a total lack of confidence in a lot of areas. And I think that what a lot of people steer from is kind of like what we were talking about last time, having that community of people around you to kind of help mold you into who you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to falling on the single household. Sometimes, that part of the teaching doesn't really get taught, especially for men, because the man is not in the household. And so therefore that confidence that should be in a positive way, it's not given. And now I would say there's not positive confidence. Let me change that. There's a lot of confidence, but it always tends to go to the negative spectrum, go more over to the natural side. And a lot of that is coming from influences that are, in like the hip hop community. Also, like you said, in sports and things like that. And but it's crazy because it's a flawed confidence, right? It's
Yes.
something that you see and you perceive, and most of it is not even real. It's interpreted.
Hmm.
So the lifestyles that a lot of people are living behind the screen is not really what they're living in reality. Even the reality shows are not reality. So
True.
I
So
would
true.
say
So
that
true.
yeah, confidence is lacking for sure on that end.
So one of the things that notice in my intro, there's a phrase that's being said, and I have a particular feeling about that phrase. I'm not going to say whether good or bad just yet, but this idea of toxic masculinity.
Yeah,
A lot of times, confidence is tend to be associated. It seems like confidence is associated with the concept of toxic masculinity.
right,
I think that a lot of times what people are equating to confidence is really arrogance.
right.
And to me, there's a distinct difference between the two.
Hmm.
Um, so I like Disney shows. And if you remember Beauty and the Beast,
Yeah,
the Disney show, do you
right.
remember Son?
Yes.
Yes. So to me, he is the classic example of confidence done the wrong way, if that makes sense. And yeah, so that really does strike me as a lot of time when people think of toxic masculinity,
Hmm.
they have that image in that
Hmm.
picture. But I
Yeah,
think people want to give them a different idea of what confidence looks like from a godly perspective.
right. And even going back to that too, I'm glad you brought it back to a godly perspective because honestly, that's where our confidence has to be in. And I know sometimes people want to get off and say, "Well, you can't talk about God and put God in everything," but honestly, we see the results of taking God out of everything. And man, that's just honest
Yes.
God truth. But where I am in my life and in my journey, I refuse to not put God in anything in my life because I can't do anything without Him. I tried to, and like you said, it always went to the negative side of it because it
Mhm.
always came back to self pleasing or self appeasing, and it always came back to self. Or what am I getting out of it, or why I'm not, getting as much as I think I should get out of it. But when it goes back to God, then we come to that scripture that says, "I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice,
Holy.
holy and acceptable unto God, who is your
Mhm.
reasonable service." So when it comes down to the male, especially when you're serving God, then that's a sacrifice that you're making. You're presenting your body as a living sacrifice. Now that confidence that comes from God is God oriented. So now our confidence is in the faith side, right? And so it doesn't have to be masculinity in a sense, and it can be both male and female. But the confidence that we can have in God is through that faith. And
Mhm.
so now we're able to achieve a lot more things without, like you said, having that toxic, masculinity, because that kind of steers more towards a selfish thing. Like I'll lift myself up, which, that's what the devil did when Satan did when he was in heaven. He said,
Yep.
"I'm lift myself up, above God and make my kingdom greater to Him." So, and when you have that toxic masculinity, that's kind of where it comes from. It kind of comes to where I'm self-consuming. I want to lift my own and assert myself up with my own superiority, my own power. And a
Mhm.
lot of times we do that by power of influence, power of money and wealth. And it's still fake because if you take all of that away, then you're left with just a shell of a man, and he's not whole and he's not complete. So,
And I think that gets to the idea of when you look back at the definition of confidence, there's a faith or belief
yeah,
in something or someone.
right.
So, and for me, just as an example,
Mhm.
we talk a lot about self confidence, and
Yeah,
you kind of alluded to that.
right.
And I don't think self confidence in and of itself is necessarily a bad thing as long as you know where your source of confidence comes from.
Right, right.
For example, I lift weights. That's something I do. I'm going to go lift weights as soon as we finish this. That's something I
Right.
enjoy doing. When I
Okay.
was in high school, you could put me under 315 on the
Mhm.
bench. There's 3 plates on each side, and I could comfortably get that 5 times, probably six to eight if I'm really got someone pushing me.
Right.
Right? That's where I was.
Yeah.
Now I could probably get it once. If I'm to be, that's 30 years later, right?
Yeah.
I can probably get it once. Right
Right.
now, if you put me under 225, which I'm gonna go lift today,
Yeah.
yeah, I can get that 8. I work out, I get that normally 8 times. Pretty standard.
Right.
I know that if I get under there, I can right now,
Yeah.
225, I can do that. And
Exactly.
I think that's okay. I got confidence that I'm gonna be able to do that.
Right.
But I had know that ability, the body to do this comes from God. And you
Right.
said present yourself as your body is a temple, a living sacrifice. So for
Yeah.
me, even though I'm blessed and I'm able to accomplish this example of lifting weights,
Mhm.
I know that ability, that's my ultimate source is God. He's a
Right.
blessing. The things that I accomplish can't be denied,
Mhm.
but again, it goes back to where is the source of that ability. And I think
Right.
we lose sight of that source, if that makes sense.
Right. Right. And I mean, and it happens, even it even happens with you being on this journey with Christ. Sometimes you can just get caught up, with they're
Mhm.
not just caught up with the world, but just get caught up with the everyday life, with your family, with work, with tasks, and you'll sometimes find yourself kind of drifting away, even when you're trying your best
Mhm.
to walk upright before the Lord. And that's why I said men should always pray. And I'm finding out even more, man, because you're not going to always be able to go to your secret place. Thankfully, I got a job now to where it's really laid back. I teach school, so my
Mhm.
schedule is pretty much fixed. So now, out of man, over 15 some years, I actually have a schedule to where it's the same thing every day, and so I'm able to get up every morning at the same time. But when I wasn't able to do that, it was hard,
Yep.
And then when you miss those days, sometimes the enemy will use those because now you're getting caught up with the day and you didn't have that chance to, spend time with God. So that's kind of what's pulling you away. But you still have to assert yourself in the workplace. But now you're doing it from a whole different mind space, right?
Yep.
You're doing it
Yep.
just because now it's in survival mode. And so it's like, am I really doing it the way that God wants me to do it? Right? Because,
Yeah.
man can have their own confidence, and that's fine. And it's good to have self-confidence, like you said, but it needs to be derived from a place of maturity. It needs to be derived from a place of understanding and actually
Mhm.
biblical, biblical sound doctrine, because that's the only way that it's going to be presented in the right manner.
Yep. Yep. So for me, it's my brother John. He's joining us.
All right,
Welcome,
sweet.
welcome, John. How you doing?
What's going on?
And we're just talking about confidence and just giving the people an idea of what confidence is. And if we talked about the definition of confidence, and it basically boils down to having a trust or belief in someone or something that you're going to get in a particular outcome. So we're focusing on the first part now, the source, right? In order to have confidence in someone or confidence in an outcome, you got to have a confidence in something.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the idea of self-confidence versus confidence in God, confidence from God.
Yeah, I
Just to
think it
kind of
all
catch you up.
goes like hand in hand, right? Uh, so we talk about the real reason why we do the things that we do and the faith that we have in God, and then we talk about basically the belief we have. We go through adversity, we go through certain things, but we know what the final outcome will be.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what. So when we go through things. Sometimes that's why we get confused on some of our blessings when it doesn't come when we want it. That saying that comes right on time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about the confidence that you have that the Lord will deliver you, or that He's going to do things, or you have favor, that you may not get the promotion that you want, but the God has something bigger in store for me. Or you may not have got the car, or you may not got the things that you wanted at that time, but there's a time and place, even with they talk about marriage and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
There's a time and place for all of that during God's time, not usually our time. So we have to have that faith in Him that those things will prosper and believe. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
Right.
So like my confidence comes from that faith. So if you don't have that faith, what confidence do you have? Is that misleading? It could be conceived as cockiness.
Arrogance. Yep. We talked about yes.
So when you look at it, you got to have the faith in God. And sometimes that can be perceived the wrong way too. When you have faith, saying, "Hey, I know it's going to work out." People of the world might look at you different. And that's the
Sometimes
thing.
it will.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it, going through adversity just like Jesus did, he went through it as well. So, you know, we're no different from him, so we have to understand that. So having that faith is necessary in order for us to go through the things we got to go through. So I think that's most important when we talk about that confidence. So I think it's important to link those together, having faith, and the faith gives me the confidence I need, knowing the outcome, knowing what the bottom line, knowing what the outcome will be.
Oh wow, yeah. So one of the things that I see as some people struggling with is that they tend to have confidence in they not just themselves, which is when they put too much confidence in themselves. Because for me, I know we're humans, and as great as we are, we're going to fail at some point. Right? We're going to fail. It's just human nature. It is who we are. And then when you fail, where does your confidence now go? It tends to drop and go to rock bottom. But I've seen other people do, and I'm a husband, and I have been guilty of this, and that's something I'm very mindful of. I've seen people put confidence in their spouse or their children.
Yeah, for sure.
And their spouse and children are human. They may not believe it, but they're prone to fail. This part of this human condition. Right. And so that's one area where I've seen people put faith in. And I've also seen people put faith in human created organizations, and particularly the government, right? The government will take care of me. The government will see me through. We elect the right politician and everything will work out. And that one probably that bothers me the most, because it's like, there are some politicians I know that I believe have good intentions, but they're still human.
Right.
And just they're bound to fail. So if you guys just talk a little bit about just some of those aspects, and if you've seen that, if there's other things you've seen people kind of put their confidence or their faith or their trust in.
I'll say.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
My bad. I would say, just as a living example, man, since we're talking about this and things that we, have really faced. Me personally, as being a man, I struggle with that. Honestly, I struggle with that all my my young adult life, my teenage life, my young man life. I struggle with the confidence thing. And the thing I struggle with was my insecurities. The fear of rejection, the fear of not, isolation, loneliness. It was something I struggled with. Now, then I didn't know how to deal with it. And so the way I dealt with it, like you're talking about, if you don't give it to God in a sense, or have a mentor to work you through some of these things. That's why it's very important to have somebody you can really talk to, because the pornography thing, man, that thing got me early. And it was my go-to when I felt like I was, mistreated, or if I felt like I just had to kind of, I don't know, just have something to make me feel like I'm just a human being. Like I diverted back to it. And even like with having to have people like with compliments and things like that, because it's not that I just needed it per se, but as a part of my, if I had to have my own self-confidence, especially confidence in God, I probably would have overcame that a lot longer. But I am thankful that God allowed me to go through it, which I question a lot, because I'm like, God, you allowed me to go through it even into my marriage, and it messed up a whole lot of stuff, I'm not gonna lie, that I'm still having to work through, But now, just on the flip side of it, well, what God has shown me and how he's blessed me to get over that inferiority complex and get over that, insecurities. My confidence is in God, like 100%. And his word says, I will never leave you. I'll never forsake you. Right. Amen. And that's something I had to learn the hard way, because when I was abandoned and when I was left or accused, like I didn't have a leg to stand on, but God's word was true. And he never left me. He never forsaken. And honestly, he ended up blessing me more with me coming, vulnerable and coming boldly before his throne than when I was just trying to kind of do it on my own. And like said, you get your own business and stuff like that, start making a little money, start doing things. You kind of feel like, oh, I'm gonna do my thing, And it's not a lot of times you're not just trying to do it just to go left field, but it's like I finally get a chance to do what I want to do, without anybody else, being over me. But I got lost in that. I'm not gonna lie, I got lost in that, and God had to just really turn it completely 180 around and bring me back to Him. And so, what the level that I'm experiencing Him now is completely different from what I had before. And so that confidence, though, it comes through Him. And that's the only way that it comes. Like even now, it comes through Him, because when the things don't work out the way that I want to, I don't go back to those things that I used to, or feel I'm gonna go. God, it's your baby now, because you told me to put my trust in you, and that's what my confidence in. And so it actually helps me, so I don't have to feel that weight.
Amen.
Yeah,
John,
I think.
Yeah.
So what I do is I have a balance method that I use whenever I'm looking at confidence and things of that nature. So hold on, my guys. We're having some malfunctions today here.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
So I have a balance method, and I've used that all throughout the military. And what I do is I talked about this when my grandmother said be above average, right? And I talked about the faith that I have in God. And I go through a saying that my last name means something. And when I think about my last name, I think about my ancestors, being discriminated against, my parents picking cotton, my dad having to go to the Vietnam War, being, drafted, things of that nature, all those things that add up. And I think, Andrew, you were there. You were there during my retirement ceremony when I said it was disrespectful for me not to honor them whenever I'm in situations, or whenever I go to work, or wherever how I present myself. So having that mentality helps me overcome a lot of things and have the confidence. So whenever you're in situations where you're tempted, things are not going right, I always think about, my family, my last name, and how that affects not just me, but everybody in that situation. A lot of times we don't really home in on, we just think about ourselves whenever we're tempted by, certain things. But let's take that in perspective and say, what about if I paired you and your children together? And then I say, okay, are you tempted by this? Knowing it's going to affect your daughter, affect your son,
Right.
or affect your mother, or affect your father, affect your sister, your aunts, your uncles, your nieces and nephews that haven't even been born yet. What if I said that one decision is going to affect them?
Right.
Now, how do you navigate through life? Because I think that's the problem that we have in society today when we talk about confidence as a Christian male. A lot of people are just being selfish with it. The confidence that God gives you is for you to do greater good and good deeds. He doesn't say, I give you confidence for selfish things. He gives you confidence so you can do his will, do his work. So it's only fair that you think about those things as you go through life, perfection. And I think if you have that, then that's a formula that you can use to navigate, any situation, whether it's at work or getting on your nerves, you got to carry yourself a certain way, because guess what? You got a family at home, or you're at church and you're dealing with somebody, you got to navigate a certain way. It just helps you walk through life and put things in perspective, because you're thinking about, your family and what your last name represents and how it's going to be when you go before in the future. If your son grows up and they dealt with you, then you're a reflection of how they're going to treat him.
Right.
So I think that's a problem with the young males, and I think that's a problem with everybody in society, right? Because a lot of time we have confidence, and there's also a side of entitlement where we leave it all to God, but not put in the work.
Yeah.
And we wonder why we don't get blessed. Are we doing the things to prepare? God say, hey, I'm gonna get you this. I have favor with you. I'm gonna make sure you get this job. But if you're not doing what you need to do to get the qualifications, how can he bless you?
So that leads me. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So
that
I
leads me
think
to- go ahead.
So I think that's just a trickle down effect of everything. When you talk about Christian confidence, it has a string of things that's attached to it. And I use those two methods to kind of ignite that. So I can actually put it in perspective, not be tempted. And I might have confidence. Somebody might look at me and say, he's got a lot of confidence. No, I'm thinking about my family,
Yeah.
That has sacrificed for me before I was even born. So that's why the confidence and the drive that you don't see, because I'm thinking about them or I'm thinking about my family. So that's kind of how my examples of how I deal with it.
So there's three. So when I talk to people about confidence, I talk to the young guys about confidence. There are three components of confidence in developing confidence in yourself, and we want to leave guys with good practical advice, and we'll get to some specific things that we kind of jotted down for notes. But there are three components, and I would love for you guys to kind of talk through them a little bit. The first is competence. You can't have confidence unless you have confidence. I brought up the idea of Shaquille O'Neal. Right, Shaquille O'Neal. You put him 1 foot from the basketball goal, he has great competence in being able to score. 2'7", 360, or however much he weighs. However, you put him at the free throw line, he's a 50 to 52% lifetime free throw shooter.
Right.
He doesn't have confidence. It's demonstrated. He's not very good. The flip side of that, Steph Curry. You put Steph Curry at the 3-point line.
Yeah.
Great confidence. He'll jack it up and turn around and walk away because he believes, he believes in his ability and the God-given ability to be able to do that. But competence, and Drew, I really want to take your life, because from what you did with you getting your master mechanics degree.
Right.
In order to get there, you had to demonstrate competence, that you knew different parts and things like that.
Right.
So would you kind of talk about that journey? Because I think a lot of times that a lot of guys, we want the end result.
Yeah.
We want to be able to talk the game
Right.
without, for lack of
work.
a better word, putting in the work. I'm just being honest. And that's something, that work is not instant. Even if think about this live stream, right? We're starting off, not getting very few views, but you got to, and then we'll talk about consistency, which is the second C in that. But competence, the demonstrated ability, if you will.
And like you said, I mean, and honestly, you can gain confidence by doing those things. And the more competent you get in certain areas, then you grow in those areas, because all you're doing is just developing knowledge, you're developing a skill set, and you're mastering it. And honestly, that's all it is. Now, you say that's all it is, like it's simple. It is. But the thing that we don't do a lot of times, we don't put in the work. Like you said, honestly, we don't put in the work. Jim Rohn had this thing. He's like, if you knew that the doctor told you that if you exercise every day, you'll be healthy for the rest of your life, and that's all you have to do is just exercise every day. It's like, it's so easy to do that. It's like, but as easy as it is to do it, it's as easy not to do it. So a lot of times people, they just don't do it. It's just that easy, And so when you're developing these skills, man, it takes time. Now, what I did, I think what I had the advantage on, honestly, I will say this because I grew up just working hard. I grew up, working hard, and honestly, we did it for survival. It wasn't just because, we did it for survival, man. I remember times I with my dad, hauling scrap iron on Saturdays when all the other kids and stuff was playing. I remember times we was out in the woods, cutting timber and stuff when all the other kids was playing. I did that. I can remember the times, when I'm at home on Saturday, everybody else is playing, but hey, we working. We out in the yard, we get stuff done, and then we're going and cleaning up other people's yards, cleaning up junk and things like that, because that's how, he was making his extra money. And so I had that aspect. But one thing, like you said, when I was getting into the professional arena, as far as the automotive mechanics, I knew I was good with my hands. And my shop teacher told me, he's like, man, you really got a skill. He's like, if you really applied yourself, you probably could be something. And I don't know if he was lying to me or not, Well, he told me that, and I took it. I was like, man, you said I had a skill, and I didn't know what that really meant. It's the difference between like a shade tree working on cars, and then somebody who's actually doing it as a career and working for dealerships on a professional level. And so I want to pursue it on a professional level, and it's not just oh, I got two boss, I got a little nozzle, I'm finna go work on this car. No, it's a little more to it than that. You got to understand all back behind that, right? So you have to break it down to understand Ohm's law, Pascal's law, Kirchhoff's law. We use conventional theory in automotive, and it's not like just a regular electron flow. And if I hadn't learned that though, I wouldn't be good at electrical. And I see all the guys, a lot of guys that I work with, they can't do electrical. You give them something that's anything electrical. Oh no, I can't work on that. I'm like, it's easy. The reason I say it's easy because I took my time to study the principles, how it works and how it operates. I got the knowledge base. They sent me to school. I applied myself. Right, it wasn't cheap. And even before I, worked at the dealership, I went to tech school. We paid for that. My parents paid for that for me to go. So I had to pay to get, where I was. So I had to put in work, all those hours of studying. That even goes back to the word. Word says in 1 Timothy, study to show thyself approved. Well, that's what I did in the profession. I studied to show myself approved. That way, when I went into the workforce, the job arena, I didn't have to just say, oh, I think I can. It's like, no, I know I can. How do I know? Because I have the knowledge. So now you just give me the opportunity and I'm going to apply that knowledge. And so I went from just being an oil change lube tech, making $10 an hour in 2000, and to where by year 5, they had bumped me up to $17 an hour. And I had 2 certifications. And it took you a total of 8 certifications to get your master certifications. And it was work. And so that's why I started working at. And every chance I got to go to school, I just applied myself. I showed them that, hey, I want to be here. I want to learn this stuff. I know you guys need somebody to do this. And they saw me as presenting myself and wanting to learn. So they opened up the doors opportunity for me. And by year 6, I think I pretty much had tackled pretty much everything except I think I still need to focus on maybe the diesel side of it. Because it's kind of hard in the dealership. Sometimes you get in the area, like I did drivability, brakes, because I did all the electrical, the trim. So I was the guy that kind of did all that. And all that got put on me. Well, you can't do everything because, it's not enough time in the day. But when I started doing diesels, that at that time we had the 7.3s. When those phased out, we came in with the 6.0. Oh my gosh, those was the worst thing that was manufactured by Ford. But I got my experience in. It was one of the hardest things. Nobody liked to touch them. So guess who got them? I got them, and I learned how to do diesels. Then they started sending me to school for it, And I did all the hard work. You talking about every time I saw one come in. Honestly, I got to the point where I hated seeing them come in because I knew we had to pull the cab, got to pull the heads, got to do all the injectors, EGRs. But I did the work, and that gave me that extra not only competence, but also the confidence in it. So now when it came out, I can fix it, get it to me, I could diagnose it, I can figure out what's going on. So that didn't just happen just because I haphazardly said I'm gonna be a professional technician. No, I said it, but then I had to put in the work behind it because each phase I had to complete a task, right? Electrical, it took me a little while to get to electrical because there's a lot of components with that. We had networking, we had multiplexing, and then you had module-to-module communication. All that stuff was then. Now we got MS-CAN, HS-CAN, and a lot of stuff, like when I'm talking to either other technicians, they're like, I'm like, dude, you should know this stuff. but I had to learn it. So even though I'm saying it because I had to, man, you weren't there when I was standing at the dealership 9 to 10 o'clock at night just to try to learn this stuff and get into my head. I was one of those slow learners. It took me a long time, before it processed. But once I got it, and I got it. And that's just one of those things too, to build up your confidence. It's not always going to come easy. There's going to be some challenges. You're not going to pass every test that you take. You may have to take it 3 or 4 times. I did. One test I had to take 8 times. I couldn't figure it out, but I kept doing it. But once I figured it out, that put me in an arena above, a lot of other people, or, on the same arena to a lot of other professionals. And I'm thankful for that. So it takes a mindset, and it takes you going after it and then trying to achieve it in order to get there. It's not going to just happen just because, I believe it is going to happen. No, your belief is good, right? Your motivation is good, but now you got to have discipline, and discipline is what's going to get you all the way.
And that actually leads into John. I'll let you step in for just a second here. You kind of dovetail real nicely into the second C, which is consistency. So we talked about competence, the ability, the God-given ability to do something, right? And the ability for even if it's not necessarily God-given wholeheartedly, the God-given desire and the forthrightness to go after it, right? Even Andrew said he had to go take a test 8 times, but the ability to keep after to actually to learn it, and that's something that's valuable. But the consistency part, the overtime part, John, I know you were in the military for 20 plus years, give or take.
Yeah.
So, and you, in order for you to rank up to the rank that you were able to get to, that took some competence because you had to know your job, but it had to be consistent, done over time. So you can definitely talk about the competence part, but dovetail into the consistency part as well, because a lot of times, a lot of us we want confidence and just say we know how to do something. Well, you do something once, that's good, but you got to, and it's almost like you got to show that it's not a fluke. It's not just oh, Shaquille will make a free throw every once in a while, right? You know,
Right.
but consistency, right? Steph Curry, 90 plus, last time I checked, a 90 plus career lifetime free throw shooter. He's been consistent over 10 multiple years. So it's to me, it's both dynamics are important. Competence showing you can do something, but over time as well. So if you talk about that, help us out a little bit.
So for me, like competence, um, I guess that is needed because for my competence it was a little bit different because I was dealing with discrimination.
Yeah.
You're dealing with all those things. So, what is the one thing that you can control, right? The competence. Like I said, God blessing me, but I still have to be ready, even though there's discrimination coming, there's frustration, there's things of that nature, right? So, knowing your job and those things is something they can't take away from you. And like I said, when you buckle down, you do what you need to do. And that's with anything in life, Sometimes we complain about how unfair it is, but we don't do the things that we need to do when it's in our. And if you look, there's certain things that's in our control
Mhm.
that affect us differently. We may not be in the season for it to manifest, but we will get to that season. We're just not in the season right now, and that's how it was for me in the military. I mean, I got discriminated a lot against just because of the color of my skin, but I knew my job and everybody knew that. So the story is that, I was passed over for promotion that I should have had a while ago. Actually, was always top in the class. I did excellent on the, physical evaluations, uh, had the education behind me. I did all these things. And I was kind of discouraged. But when I asked for prayer, when I prayed about it, the Lord said, control what you can control. So I was able to, get my education. I got more certifications. I got more knowledge because I couldn't control the military aspect.
Right.
But I could be ready for when I did get out on the civilian side and make sure that what I didn't get in the military, I was going to get when I left the military, right? So my motto was be better out of the uniform than I was in it. So I stuck with that. So I started preparing. I started doing the things that, would set me up for success. So I started looking at different job scales, higher job scales and what the qualifications were. And I started going after those things, certifications, education. And that's how I tailored myself. Long story short, I was able to get everything that was promised in the military. And I even left the military because I was prepared, right, to leave. Because what God has blessed me, my wife and family has sacrificed for me, and I've met my time, but I was number one on the promotion list. So, when you talk about it, what is God telling you to do? Put your family first, right? God, family. He doesn't say, work, God, family. So I'm number one on the promotion list. I could have took that. I could have stayed in and elevated a little bit more, but I decided to choose my family first. So when I did that, then he blessed me more. I retired, then I got a job over 6 years because I had prepared in that season.
Mhm.
I didn't get rewarded for it while I was in the military.
Yeah.
But when I got out the military, all my blessings came at once because he said, you did what I asked you to do.
Right.
I was preparing you and you chose your family. Now, if I had not chose my family, I wouldn't be as blessed as I am right now.
Amen.
So when you talk about competence and consistency, sometimes your greatest victory will come at the feet of will come at your greatest defeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your greatest victory will come at the feet of your greatest defeat.
Right.
And that's what it's important for everybody to know. Like when you're down and out and you're at your greatest, you think you're defeated. That's when your greatest victory is presented.
Right.
So I think about that. Like I look back at it now, I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, I would rather go through the discrimination. I'd rather go through the adversity because when I did that, it triggered me to do other things.
Right.
And look at it now. I went through that adversity.
Right.
And look at where it got me to.
Mhm.
So people that's watching and they're looking at that and they're going through things, even in a marriage or divorce or even nothing lasts always, right? And if you do the things that you need to do that you can control, eventually there's light at the end of the tunnel, but you still have to do God's word in the midst of that. If you don't choose your family first and you choose work for it first, I wouldn't be blessed.
Amen.
I wouldn't have the house I have. I wouldn't have I just have an easy life because of what I chose, and I chose my family. So you think about it, everybody does this for their family. They go to work. And like I said, that's why I'm big on doing things for others, the good deeds when you live your life, because I know that rewards you to greater success. And I say, don't be selfish with your desires. Always look at elevating to elevate others. And that's how I look at it. So when you talk about competence and consistency, that's kind of the formula that you got to have in order to be in it the long way. Because I'm pretty sure Drew went through that studying 9 or 10 o'clock at night. He wasn't doing it for himself. Something was motivating him to do that, because he got a word and he did the work and he was motivated no matter what. I'm pretty sure he had some days or he didn't get the schools that he should have got at that time, but he kept going. And now he's in that season. So it's all about doing the things that you can control. It might be winter, but you got to do the things that you can control. And then when you come out, your season will come and you'll be ready to receive God's blessing. And I think that's the biggest thing, being ready to receive it. So you got to have competency and consistency in everything that you do. Even when all the women say, I want to get married. I want to do this. I'm waiting on my husband. But are you doing the things that you need to do to prosper? Because I tell you what, my wife had a kid already. And what attracted me to her is that she was independent. And she was taking care of her daughter. She was doing these things. And I was looking at her. She didn't really need a man. And I was attracted because here she is working hard, doing what she's going to do. And I knew I got to look at my wife early of how she would be with my children. To me, that was a blessing right there because I was able to visually see that, this woman is great. She's taking care of the kids. She's doing what she needs to do. She's working hard. I know that if something happened to me, that she's going to do whatever is possible to take care of my children. So some women don't get that. How they present themselves when nobody's looking, because a good man is always watching first. So he's watching to see how you interact with, if you have children, how you interact with your children. Do you put your children first? So it's a whole, we can go on and on about this, but that competency and consistency is just the way to better blessings, I think.
Yeah. So Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, and we've kind of hinted around at this. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, some verses say acknowledge. This one says submit to him, and he will make your path straight, or he will direct your paths. And I think and going back to the definition of confidence, what are you putting your faith and your trust in? What are you putting your confidence in?
Right.
And in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 clearly says, trust in the Lord and not in your own understanding.
Right.
Again, it doesn't mean that the God-given abilities and the talents and the things you've learned are not there, but what is your source? And I think that's what we as men especially, we have to remember, because we can tend to think too much that we are the source, that it's all about me. It's because of me.
Right.
That's why it's happening. And that's something that I know I personally struggle with, especially growing up. I was pretty good in football. And I wasn't living a Christian life by no means. So for me, it was all about me. I was good. I could do this. And I happened to be pretty smart. It's like, I'm good. I'm smart. For me, it was all about me. And God, it took a road, but God had to humble me to get to understand that he was my source, not me and myself. And that kind of leads to the last C, which is character. You can have competence. I've seen people with great abilities, God-given abilities, and where they've learned and they've worked. I've seen people consistent that are able to do it over a long period of time. Where some people fall, particularly some of us guys fall, is the character aspect. Because we have the demonstrated ability, we've done it over time, but we take it too far in one way. For example, being too arrogant about it. And then to me, it kind of also goes back to the whole self-centeredness in the fact that I'm the source, that I believe the source. And that's something that, for those of us and I'm thinking about guys like Elon Musk, he's a good example. I'm thinking about, Steph Curry, all the greats that have done it over a period of time. I'm not saying these guys are not, but if you don't have demonstrated character, you could end up falling into a world of hurt. Thinking about with David, right? David was a great warrior, can't be denied. They sung the song. This is what got Solomon upset. Solomon kills his thousands and David his 10,000s, right? David was the man. He did this. He did it over a period of time, right? He was a consistent warrior, right? He is and when he fought against Goliath, he knew where his source was. He's like, you coming against not me, you're coming against the God of Israel.
Right.
You're in trouble, bro. you don't have it, because David knew where his source was.
Right.
Where David got in trouble was in the book. It says, during the springtime, when men go off to war, when kings go off to war, when David wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, he was sitting at home. He got too comfortable. There was this aspect of his character that came about when he saw Bathsheba. And of course, we know the story with, having her husband Uriah killed. That was a slip in character from David. Even though David was a man after his own heart, that was a slip. That was a slip in his character. And I think, to me, that always reminds us that we have to be diligent, right? You talked about some of the roads you went down. I know for me, if I'm not careful, I can easily slip back. God bless me, I got promoted last year. Wonderful thing. If I'm not careful, I can slip back into the old me if I'm not diligently working each day to remember where my source is, where my abilities, my God, even in consulting, which is what I do, my God-given abilities to be able to do these things. And I talked to God, like, just keep me humble, keep me whole, keep me at your feet, basically. Any words you guys want to add to that before we wrap up?
No, I think he's spot on with everything as far as everything that we said tonight and leading on to that. I just think that, like you mentioned, it's all about, those aspects of being a Christian male perspective, right? You
So
know,
let's talk about some specifics, right? I got teenage boys I deal with,
Yeah.
and one of the things. So there's three aspects, and we could kind of take each one, and then maybe others if you guys want to give some good advice on it. Walking, talking, and handshakes. And I know you're like, what are you talking about? There is a way that you present yourself, and this is something I always get on to the guys about, and the young men, my son. There's ways that you present yourself, the way that you talk, the way you use your voice, if you will, the way that you walk, the way that you carry yourself, and some people don't think about something as simple as a handshake, right? So you guys could pick either one. If you got other ones, please toss it on. But how do those? How do you? The confidence that God gives you, that you know that God is with you, and the way He. How those just practical ways to talk about any one of those. Pick one and just kind of work with it. As far as some tips that you would give to guys on, again, walking, talking, handshake, from your perspective, things that you've seen, maybe even.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is just the way you communicate, especially in our community, black men. Right? We're already seen as a threat because considered as like, and I don't really know why. I guess it's just been deemed as that, but we seem like we're always the aggressor in a sense. So just something that is simply, and you don't have to, dumb yourself down, but talking the right way. Your speech. That's one thing my mom always got onto me about is like how you're talking, how your mannerism is, and honestly, she said it so much to where, I made sure that I tried to talk as proper as I could, or make myself as understandable as I could. I'm from Mississippi though. Hey, this is how we talk. We got slang. We got that little slur, and but most people that I talk to, there's like, man, you from Mississippi? I'm like, yeah. It's like, well, you don't sound like you're from Mississippi because I tried to practice, how I say my words. I know sometimes I stumble over my words. I know sometimes, I may get, I talk fast. Sometimes I have to slow down. But when I'm doing that, as I'm talking to other people, like I'm talking like I got sense. I'm talking like I'm intellectual, and that doesn't even mean that I'm necessarily as intellectual as they think that I am, but my speech, and that's even biblical, because even when Peter, when Jesus was going to the cross, and they were trying to be around their own little crowd or whatnot, and they didn't want to be really involved with Jesus because of the crucifixion, the road to the cross. His very speech betrayed him. The way he talked, it gave him away. That no, you were in Christ. So it does mean something. So that's what I'll definitely tell young men. I tell even in the school system now, hey, how you're talking, like, and you're in the room, and I get it. I said, but you need to bring your level of thinking up a little bit, because if you bring your level of thinking up, then your communication is going to change. I said, honestly, it's those little things that you can do that'll set you apart from everybody else that can land you that job that you want. Right? It could be just a little thing. And my biggest thing is, my boss was telling me, when I got into the job, hey, I gave good eye contact, and like I said, that firm handshake, and I said, yes, sir. That's what I was taught. But it to him was like, man, I respect this young man. He didn't even know me, but just because of how I presented myself, though, it gave me that that edge. So that's what I would say. Practice on those things. Because if you just talk, oh man, what's up, man? You know what I'm saying? Man, nobody want to hear that. They don't want hood inside of their place of business. They don't want ghetto inside of it because that's not what they're trying to represent, right? And you can say, well, I'm just gonna be myself. Well, you can be yourself, but you're gonna end up where you are. And honestly, a lot of the places they're not gonna tolerate that. They're not gonna even give you a chance and opportunity. So you at least got to get your foot in the door.
Mm-hmm. John?
Yeah, I think character is like so many other things as well. I know you mentioned the three things, but I'm big on how you move when you're not at work. The people that you hang around. Yeah. And I talk to my kids about this all the time. A lot of people, my daughters in the military, I tell them about drugs. I tell them about, be careful the company you keep, because you have something to lose. I said, so young people, um, I don't think they have a real self of awareness about, you know, the situation that they are in. More so than when we were younger, there wasn't as much social media, right?
Hmm.
Well, they have a lot of it that captures everything. You know, if they're in the wrong crowd, it's more of that, you know, because my friends, we looked out for each other. There's not a lot of friends out there. These young people don't have true friends because they're not like my friends, like we were back in the day, that they actually genuinely cared about you. You know, they care about your well being. You know, you got friends out there that'll leave you by yourself if something happens. It's just a different generation right now. It's not the same. And me and my wife have talked about that. But like I tell my daughters, what do you do when nobody's looking? That's character
Right.
that you need because the way you act, the way you carry yourself is
Hmm.
what the job is really looking for.
Yeah.
They want to know what you do on the time when you're not at work because you represent the company
Right.
and things of that nature. And you know, we talked about it. You know, everything that we talked about is very important. You know, even what Drew is saying about the way you talk, the way you communicate. Um, you know, you can put a cap on what you're going to make in life by the mistakes you make.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want to be successful, keep doing what you're doing. You know, yeah, you'll be at McDonald's. Yeah, you'll be at Lowe's. You'll be checking me out. You know, but that's true. You know, they look at TV, they look at these guys, you know, doing marijuana. Well, you can't do that in a corporate setting. You know, if you're going to school, you're gonna be a doctor. You can't do that. They're gonna test you. So it's certain things that people can do in certain spaces. Now, if you're gonna start your own business, you do what you want. You know, if you're gonna be successful. But if you're gonna go work in corporate America, you're gonna go in the military, you're gonna go get a job. It'd be too easy for them to weed you out just because of one thing. You know, and that's what our you know our young people have to understand that what are you risking? You have more at stake. You know, so I think the character that you talked about is just that, your character. And if they attach it to a character as success, the better character you have, the better success you will have. You know, the better character you have, the better job you're going to get.
Hmm.
The better character you have, the more people will treat you, the better people will treat you. So, you know, it's just one of those things that has to happen, but it's not a realization of, you know, that sense of awareness right now. And that's kind of where we're struggling at. You know, the character should be first. And you think about it, let's talk about this character, certain standards. Let's talk about those 5 police officers that were African American that killed their young men.
Yeah.
What character is that? Over a woman. Where's the
I don't know
character?
if I didn't know the details. I have not brought it. I had not brought it up yet because I'm not sure of the. I was not sure of the details of what happened yet, and honestly, but go ahead.
So, and that's all I say, the character. You know, and even when you talk about leadership, you know, bad character. I always say this. It's funny, and I even tell some coworkers that are not African American. I said, when you have poor leadership, people will look at you as a racist.
Hmm.
You will be known as a racist, sexist, um, um, just a poor leader. When you're a poor leader and poor character, that's what you open yourself up to. No matter if you're black, white, red, yellow, or green.
Hmm.
When you have poor character issues, you will open yourself for all type of HR problems just because of the way you carry yourself.
Hmm.
And that's a true statement.
Right.
So character is important.
Yeah. It
Yep,
is.
I agree. There's for me, one of the things I talk to with guys is something so simple. And my wife, she, how can I put this? Yeah, she gets on to me a little bit, but it's something, one of the things that's been ingrained in me. A handshake and eye contact. When you shake someone's hand, there's a sense of, hey, how a sense of, I don't know, firmness is the only way I can describe it. And it's not so much as just strength, but it's a sense of confidence in who I am. Like, hey, how are you doing? My name is Andre. And to be able to look someone not in a threatening way, but in a, say we're confident, in a sure where I know who I am.
Right.
Right. And that's something I get on because like when I interview, if I'm interviewing someone, and not so much now because we don't talk in person no more. I mean, it is what it is, the world we live in. But how someone approaches me, to me, it gives me a sense of how confident they feel about themselves.
Right.
And and I use that as a sense, okay, do they feel confident in what they know? Are they approaching it in a way that seems like, hey, I know what I know, right? And the other thing related to that is I do watch the way people walk, just because in these things right here, and I'm not trying not to be guilty of it. I'm guilty of it sometimes as well, but we're so used to doing this so much that we're getting hunched over and we're down, and it's just we've gotten to the point, and a lot of us we've gotten to the point of not being aware of what's going on, not walking with a sense of comfort, like a just closed in, like we're afraid of the world, for lack of a better term. And for me, is I want you to be aware of what's going on, and that's something again I try to work on as well, because that thing can get me at times as too. But to be one aware of what's going on around you, and two to be able to move confidently through the world. Literally, your walk. I know who my father is.
Yeah.
I don't have to be afraid to move in this world. I know who my father is. I don't have to be suspect of what's going on around me. Right. That to me, there's a lot when someone can walk in and and my wife says when I'm walking into a room, not trying to be the center of attention, but walking in confidently knowing that I can address whoever may be in a room, whether it's the president of the United States, the CEO of whatever corporation, Jeff Bezos himself, Steph Curry, or my boy from the block, whoever it is, being able to confidently address them and know who I am and have the knowing where God has put me and blessed me and what he has given me the abilities to do. So that one, the handshake and the walk, the way you carry yourself. And it does lead a little bit into what Drew said. Once you walk in, once you walk, and once you give a firm handshake, what comes out of your mouth, right? That is just as important. So, all right, guys, great conversation. We had a few people pop in and out, and it was good to see. Um, any parting shots before we sign off for today?
No, I thought it was great.
Cool, man.
Another great week. So
Yes. For those of you watching, you made it to the end. We thank you. Next week, we're going to be taking a break. It's Super Bowl Sunday. We are all going to be spending time with friends and family. Hope you do the same as well. This is Andre for Drew and JT with a Christian male perspective. Stay sharp, family.